How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my top 5 least reliable vehicles that I've ever worked on in my career. Okay, so a little bit of background on me. If you're new to the channel, I've worked professionally in the automotive industry for 20 plus years. I've run my own business. I've worked in 2 different continents. I've worked over in Ireland and now in Australia. So I've seen a whole host of different makes and models of vehicles to draw from. I've also only worked in the independent sector, so all makes and models were worked on in both workshops that I've been involved in. And with that, I've gone back through the library, collected as much information as I could to draw this list together. Now, the main criteria for this list is breakdowns, performance issues, things that are going to leave you stuck, stranded, with high costing, long repair times, and basically an overall bad experience in owning the vehicle. And with that said, let's jump into the top 5. The first one on my list is probably going to be the least known vehicle on the whole list, but it's an MG ZR. In particular, it's the diesel engine. It's an L series. This was owned by my girlfriend. I was quite young at the time. I was new in my career, but this one was absolutely torturous to work on with all the different issues it gave me and how much time I had to invest to try and get the vehicle right. First of all, performance. Down in performance a lot of the time, cutting back, stalling, would run again, didn't seem consistent with anything, and this was going for a while. Long story short, found out that problem to be the priming bulb, the diesel priming bulb that sits beside the fuel filter was sucking in under load. So if you had the bonnet popped open, you couldn't actually see it. Pressing it at idle, couldn't see it, but that was degrading down. And it was only as I used a bypass to confirm it, that was the fault. So that one was the first one, took a long period of time to fix. Then we have the next line of stuff. So diesel injection pump twice, 2 failures. First failure fixed, then another failure was second-hand part that was got, and that also failed. So 2 injection pumps. Clutch stopped working, and the reason why it stopped working was the fork got jammed in the box. Another what seemed to be common issue in it is that sleeve that it sits into completely jams, can't go anywhere, it's boxed out. It's actually cut that fork off in that case, hit out the sleeve and then replace it. So that was another major failure. Belt fraying. So the belt actually frayed, drive belt frayed, went around the timing belt and damaged the whole head. So while that one can be avoided if you keep on top of the maintenance of the drive belt, it's just another unfortunate event with these where you have the potential to do timing belt issue with a slight fraying of a drive belt like that. If it winds up on the inside, bang, it's completely gone and there's no saving it. And that's what happened on this vehicle as well. Last one was the mass airflow sensor that also caused a performance issue. Also what is quite a known fault on these vehicles too. So with that collective of information, it's a worthwhile number 5 on my list. So number 4 on my list is definitely going to be a more well-known vehicle worldwide. In particular, it's the Pentastar engine, but it's Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge. Worked on a lot of Wranglers and Cherokees and so on. But the Pentastar engine caused the most issue for the customers that came through our door. In particular, the misfires, misdiagnosed misfires in some workshops, but misfires, and we have cam issues, we have cam lifter issues, we have valve springs breaking, and we have the cylinder heads. So the actual cylinder heads warping, going out of shape with the valve guides, and you would have to get a new cylinder head. Low compression, poor performance, engine light on, breaking down and just constantly given grief. I've seen these over and over again to do this. The cylinder head issues on this, they came out with an extended warranty of 150,000 K, I believe, and 10 years. So it is a very known issue. You can't just rectify it easily. It's major repairs and very, very costly repairs. So if you're unfortunate enough to not be in an area to get that extended warranty, which has happened to a number of people I know, then you're going to be paying a very substantial repair bill to get these items rectified. The oil cooler as well is another common failure on these, and there's other common failures as well, but they're the big ones that I'm focusing in on this, and that they definitely deserve to be on the list. So number 3 on the list is a very worthy addition to the list. It could easily be higher on the list as well, should I have had a bigger client base that owned these vehicles. While it was a small percentage of my clients, it still took up a large amount of the repairs in regards to bulk problems overall that we'd seen, and major breakdowns. So one of the most common vehicles that you will see stuck at the side of the road, one of the most common ones that tow truck delivery drivers have to come across. It is, of course, JLR, so Jaguar Land Rover. In particular for my client base is the Evoque, but we have Discoveries and all that. And also the engine that is the most suspect is the Ingenium engines. Notorious for failure, notorious for issues, and let's just talk about some of the faults that have been experienced on these vehicles. What we have seen is stuck on electric park brakes, completely jammed on electric park brakes is one of them, and not being able to get it into gear. That circular gear selector that rotates and goes down, so retracts back in and pushes up, failing, getting stuck in the down position and not actually been able to select gears. Also, drivability wise, the Haldex, so on the rear end, those Haldex differentials causing basically to fail, so a dragging as you're driving around, a gripping and a real restriction as you can feel the wheels rotate, just catching and grabbing on the road. I've seen a couple of those failures on it as well. And then we jump into the major failures. So we have time and chain failures. We have camshaft failures. We have the carrier, so the camshaft carrier failing as well. We have the piston cooling jets failing, causing a lack of lubrication to the lower side of the pistons, lower side of the cylinders, and that in turn causes engine wear and premature failure. So their mileage return from those engines are very low, and the amount of faults and issues that you get from it are extremely high. There's also cooler failures on that as well. You have DPF issues, you have air suspension issues. Just overall, there's a major amount of things that can break down on these vehicles that can leave you stuck at the side of the road, not going anywhere. So the repair bills on them are very high as well. They're not a cheap vehicle to work on, time consuming. From memory, when these were going into the dealerships for warranting that work, you would be a long time without the vehicle because they were so backed up on repairs. And that just shows the level of failures that was happening on these vehicles. There's whole host of minor other issues that happened with them, but that was the bulk of the problems that you would experience owning one. And if you were lucky enough to get out of it in time, best of luck to you. But if you owned one for long enough, you probably would have experienced one of those faults. Now, number 2 brings us over to the I suppose more the Australian American market. We're talking about Holden, we're talking about Chevrolet, and we're talking about the Cruze in particular. Now this is all of the engine platforms, whether it's diesel or the petrol 1.4, 1.8. I've experienced a whole host of problems across all of their platforms on the Holden Cruze. So going through the list, we're going to start with probably the most common that people experience, and it's coolant related faults. So overheating issues and leaks, which cause, they have a very weak head on these, so any overheating can damage the head. I don't know how many head gaskets, head repairs have been done in workshops I've been involved in, a whole host of them. Customers drive, it gets hot, even if they say they didn't run it long, it turns out they have done damage to that engine. We have thermostat housings that leak. We have hoses that leak all over, bypass hoses, small little plastic pipes, there's rubber seals, basically all the heating that happens around where they're located, they become very brittle, they break. Even if you go in to do repairs on those thermostat housings, ends up a lot of the materials break down because they've degraded over a long period of time on it. The water pumps, they leak badly as well. Oil cooler failures happen in the turbo versions. The turbo fail, parts of the turbo actually crack. I have seen inlet manifold failures. There's a check valve in that inlet manifold that breaks and fails as well. The pipes that run up from that manifold, I've seen those break as well. Loads of emissions related faults, just tons of them.
So the long term is at 30% and the short term is at 15 at idle. When I increase the RPM, the short term drops right down and it goes into a negative reading. I'll keep it at a steady 2000 RPM. And the short term is where it should be roughly, and the long term drops down. But at idle, it's definitely got too much air being introduced.
Air leaks, purge control solenoid failures, just trying to keep the fuel trims and the check engine light off these engines can be very difficult. Then the more simple common faults, the ignition coil breaking down, that single bank ignition coil that you get, a very common failure. So the Cruze, you also have the major oil leaks and so on. Oh, and the rocker cover as well. Rocker cover, while it has oil leaks, it also has a PCV integrated into it. It's a little membrane that sits at the top, but it's a non-repairable item. It just comes with the rocker cover complete. That also fails, causing fuel trim issues. The cooling fans also fail on the Cruzes as well. The expansion tanks crack in them, and all of those lead to engine failure. So anything related to the coolant system failing can lead to the engine failing, and in turn, if you're not really on top of your service and maintenance straight away with these, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So that is why this easily makes number 2 on the list. Now, number 1 could not be more of a number 1 if I tried. I've never experienced a vehicle that has been as bad as these over all of the ranges. Literally whatever engine platform, whether it's all-wheel drive or two-wheel drive, whether it's diesel, petrol, the 4-cylinder V6, whatever you have, you're going to have problems if you have these vehicles. You're guaranteed to have problems if you own these long enough. Now, I'm going to hear, and I have heard over my career, the anecdotal evidence that people come across, personal experience going, I've never experienced it on my one. That is fair enough. But the predominant one of these, and if you speak to mechanics, they'll know it, a Holden Chevrolet Captiva. They are one of the worst built vehicles I have ever come across, and the list of faults that they have caused customers over the years is astounding. I myself have a whole host of experience working on all of these different ranges, which have broken down, leaving customers with huge repair bills, problems that just don't exist in other vehicles, and just, unreliability across everything in the vehicle, whether it's electrical glitches, whether it's performance, whether it's engine breakdown, transmission breaking down, just the list goes on with it. But let me dive in to all of the ones I have seen come through my doors, and you'll get an idea as to how common all of these faults are. First of all, timing chains. Hold-ins in general, but timing chains and sludge build-up. You need to be on top of your maintenance with these. You need to make sure that you're servicing them regular. I recommend 10,000 Ks as the max. Get the oil change, try and avoid any sludge up. Get the oil change, try and avoid sludge up. The better oil changes you have, the better chance you have of the longevity of engines, and that's a general rule of thumb across them all. But if you can eliminate chain wear, guides getting damaged and all that, you have a chance of having a longer lasting engine. Repair costing on that is quite expensive, but also as they get worse and worse, the running of them gets worse and worse. What you're seeing here is a clip of the sludge where that front bank completely went down. And as you can see here, the sludge and thick buildup that is on this is extraordinary. Now, this is not the first time I've seen this. It's definitely not the last. This is quite a common thing with the design of the engine and how it can get sludged up like this, especially if you're not keeping on top of your maintenance. Now, the transfer cases, also called the power transfer units. I've replaced about 5 of them myself. Our workshop has replaced, I don't know, probably around 8 or so in a relatively short period of time. They are complete major breakdown. So you'll have a driving along, major groaning, and then bang.
Off the accelerator and then on, off. So that noise you heard and the damage it actually does, I have the cover taken off here and it completely blew out.
The servicing on these definitely gets overlooked, but even the ones that I've seen that have been good serviced also fail. So even if you keep on top of the maintenance, you'll stretch it out, but eventually that unit will also break down and fail. And as you can see from these clips here, catastrophic failure. The side of the box actually comes out, all the bearings break down, then you have teeth grinding up those bearings, and it's non-repairable. It's a throwaway item and you have to put a brand new part in, and you're talking about thousands of a repair bill just for this one item. The other ones I've come across is turbos, turbo failing, oil pissing through and coming through the turbo, DPF failures, fuel filter actually on the underside of it, the electrical connector shorting out and failing and having the risk of a fire. I've seen that, and it's also been noted on some of the research I had done afterwards as a known problem. Injectors failing, ECUs failing, harmonic balancers / crank pulleys having to be replaced through excessive noise and wear, alternator overrunning pulleys failing, causing that extreme noise and backlash on the drive belt, additional load on the drive belt, and then through the tensioner. Variable valve timing solenoids, another very common failure on these, both the exhaust and inlet. They also fail and break down. Intercooler hoses splitting, another very common failure. Starter motor cable failure as well. This is not something that you would expect, but due to the design flaw, the routing of the cable flaw, it's another reason why the Captiva has another breakdown, where that cable gets loose, starts to rub against the body, and then you get what you're seeing in this clip here, a major failure throughout. Eventually turns into a cranking no start fault intermittently, and then if it's left go long enough, your vehicle is left where it won't start at all. But another costly repair. Those cables are not cheap. Labor is not cheap to do it, because you have to take the box out of the way, the transfer case out of the way to get access to the starter. So it's time consuming, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. So when you take all of those failures into consideration on the Captiva, including power steering, that's another one where I kind of class it as a minor one because you can keep driving, but power steering failures is also on Captivas. And again, there's other failures that's common mechanically for them too. But all of those that I've just shared are ones that are going to leave you stuck. It's ones that's going to leave you worried. You have either major engine noise, performance issues, you can't drive, you're stuck, you're blowing out heavy smoke out the back, and it just leaves you with a large repair bill. These are not cheap vehicles, even though they're common. The parts are expensive, turbos are expensive, timing chains are expensive, injectors are expensive. There's just no way of avoiding it. Repair times, labor costs just add up and add up. And overall, you're gonna pay a lot more than the vehicle is worth should you have these issues arise. So a very worthy number one on this list is the Holden Chevrolet Captiva. Okay, so that is it for my top 5. Quite a comprehensive list. There was some notable mentions that could have easily got onto this list too, but it was so action-packed with what I had, I just couldn't squeeze them on. Volkswagen Audi, especially the TSI engines, I've seen major failures on those. Fiat and Renault as well, and a couple of their models could have crept into this list, but overall, doing it fairly and looking back at the work that I have done, I couldn't justify putting them on the list with what work has come through my doors. If you have any that you recommend going onto the list or that you've experienced, pop them down in the comments below. I know there's going to be a load of other ones that are out there, ones that I wouldn't have experienced myself. And if people are looking at this list to try and see what cars to avoid, it'll be great if the comment section is filled with information too. As always, I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you did, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.